Hello and welcome to this episode of How to Be a Great GM. I am wearing a fantastic outfit as made for me by a good friend of ours and no stranger to the channel either, that wonderful, wonderful artist Cynthia from Sin Bin. Now she played the indomitable Kalasa from Bacon Battalion, if that name rings any bells. And if this cowl and cloak doesn't ring any bells, then you haven't seen my Twitter pictures, etc. She did a remarkably amazing job on this cloak, which comes from an illustration from Sean Isaacson, who is a phenomenal comic book artist and draws some amazing stuff, and came up with the idea of this cloak and other bits and bobs. So I just want to say a big thank you to them. And to say that if you want to get hold of them, head on over to, I think it's www.sinbin.co.za or .coza. All right, so on to today's thought, and that is prison break. Now, prison breaks might seem like something that you don't need to plan for, or they might seem like something that you could use in your game, but just have never really known how to do it properly, and generally speaking, find it really difficult for your players to actually escape without doing stupid stuff. Well, we're looking at how to do prison breaks properly so that your players feel like they are the men from Alcatraz who made it. Now, before we kick off, let's unpack what a prison break is. Well, fundamentally, the prison break is about prisoners escaping a prison. Now, I know that sounds a little bit odd to have to say that, but if you think about it, the challenge with a prison break is that you've basically got three outcomes. Either they escape, good. They get rescued, goodish. Or three, they don't escape. Now, you have to plan for all three of those eventualities, because ultimately those are the three options that they have. If the prison break is somewhere in the middle of your game, or is at the beginning of the game for that matter, or is towards the end, it doesn't really matter. Because ultimately, if your players fail to escape, so we're looking at the fail option, if they fail to escape, they get taken back before the warden, beaten, bloodied and bruised, but definitely not executed. We can't execute players for escaping because otherwise they simply won't try again. So we take them back to the warden, who makes some snarky comments that they will never escape, mwahahaha, and sets up a major antagonism between the warden and the players, players' characters, so that the PCs start to want to escape again or get revenge on the warden, and then that changes it to a prison take rather than a prison break, and that's a whole different kettle of fish altogether. So, assuming that they are successful, there are two options. Either they escape or they're rescued. If they're rescued, all that you're effectively doing is removing from the player's characters the option of being heroes by escaping. However, you are introducing a really useful tool for you to use later on, and that is whoever helps the PCs escape must have done so for a reason, and the PCs should be, to a certain degree, grateful that they were helped out of the situation that they found themselves in. So there is that option, and I would suggest you do that if you don't want the prison break to be a central moment within your campaign. If you want it to simply be a delay tactic to get the PCs to reflect on their callous actions that caused them to be arrested in the first place and put into prison, then certainly a rescue option is a great way to go. Provided, of course, that you've established some kind of NPC beforehand, or that the players are sufficiently into their game that the NPCs running around know of them and go, I need to break into the bank, and I need those 4 people particularly because their skills are something that will be of value to me. Forget the fact that there are hundreds of others out there that don't require me to come up with an elaborate plan to escape or break out these 4 individuals. So if you can, then that is an option. But you must make sure that there is some kind of repercussion for the players' PCs being broken out in such a way. They need to owe a favour to somebody who has a fair amount of clout, sufficient enough to be able to effect a break from prison. So those are the two options that really don't involve the PCs very much in terms of moving forward. They become punctuation points in your adventure that will continue thereafter. So if we now turn our attention specifically to the act of the escape. The escape becomes important. Now, it's very difficult for you to manage the escape, by the way, because players, generally speaking, are not that sharp. They are not ex-convicts. They are not individuals who are accustomed to breaking out of prisons. And as a GM, you are accustomed to watching dozens of feature films where there are lots of people escaping from prisons and we all go, oh, but how silly. Why did they put them in that room that no one could see and provide them with a small window and use wax for the bars? That was so bizarre. My bars will be made out of solid steel. My prisons will be inescapable. Then you only have option number 2, which is to have someone break them out. So, this means we need to set up our prison in such a way that it can be broken out of. Again, now I know this sounds like I'm stating the obvious, but if you try and create a prison that's just too perfect, that's just too well guarded by those guards who are just too aware in an environment that's just too well built, the players are going to come up short time and time again. Now, this actually is applicable in a fantasy setting or in a science fiction setting. Now, in a science fiction setting, it becomes even more problematic because we have those things called sensors everywhere, which arguably would be watching and monitoring the locations of all of the PCs. So this requires us to set up a few things, which, if you bear with me, you'll find will become very, very useful in other adventures further on down the line. So Prison Break is a really great way to entrench into the players, into the PC narrative, a whole bunch of wonderful things that you can use later on and will seem as if it was all planned from the beginning. And in this case, it actually was. So the first thing that we need to make absolutely sure of is we need to have a mixture of NPCs. We need to have good NPCs, and by good I mean NPCs who are willing to help the party, and we need to have NPCs that act against the party, on both sides of the prison bars, by the way. A prison is a very interesting space. You've got all of these evil men and women who supposedly have committed heinous crimes against the state on one side, and you've got all of these loyal citizens desperately defending their little space and peace of life and tranquility, and they're both in opposition to one another. Interestingly enough, though, they do band together. So in the prison situation, you've got a whole lot of evil people, supposedly, who will actually work together as it becomes mutually beneficial for them to escape. So this means your NPC pool is massive. You've got all of the convicts on the inside that are going to help and hinder the PCs, and then you've got all of the individual police force, the prison guards, the wardens, the sentries, whatever you want to call them. You've got all of those on the outside, who will also either help or hinder the PCs. Now, in general, they will hinder the PCs. They're there to keep them inside. Having said that, though, we need to make sure that there are certain things that can happen. So what this requires is a small setup scene where you have the PCs in their prison environment, and there's an opportunity for them to help the guards when the problematic NPCs start attacking the guards for no reason. Now, the players either will have their characters attack the guards in a desperate, rash attempt to escape, in which case now you can bring in your prison warden, controller, mastermind, whatever, who then puts down this rebellion quite efficiently and reveals his hand in terms of his secret weapon that is within the prison. I'll come back to that secret weapon in a little bit. So you can now set up that there is this masterful NPC who runs the place, as well as this dirty NPC within the prisoner's side that is trying to get out and trying to cause trouble and all those kind of things. If the PCs assist the guards, they now start to develop a friend within the guards who is sympathetic and who has a brother who's in prison who was wrongfully imprisoned, but it is the system and he must just abide by it. However you want to build that story and get that guard on the PC side is up to you, but they become really useful for creating a minor diversion, for not looking when the PCs steal that spanner from the workshop, for not looking when the PCs make, filet mignon rather than an omelette, for example, and that allows them to escape, however that would work. So the idea is that you establish NPCs on both sides of the line that are for and against the PCs. Now, if the PCs help the prison guards, the prisoners become negative towards the PCs. That goes without saying. If the PCs help the prisoners become sympathetic towards the PCs, and there you go. Having said that, you should still try and engineer that on both sides they've got allies and they've got enemies. Make those enemies really tough, really mean, really slimy, really horrid type of people. But bear in mind that the prisoner NPC enemy is the first one that they need to overcome. So that one is the lieutenant, if you like. If you go back to different levels of evil minions and evil NPC villains and that kind of thing, previous videos, you'll see that there's layers of villains. The prisoner inside is the low-level one. The warder of the prison is the highest level one, and they must overcome these things. Now, they don't necessarily have to face them, they just need to outwit them to have considered to have overcome those villains. They don't have to actually face them in combat, they can just defeat them mentally. Now, what you need to do is go back to those videos on how to have good NPCs, where you've got a guide, you've got a supporter, and of course, you've got a potential prompt. Now, the big thing with prison breaks is maps, locations, layouts. How do the PCs get out? Here's the important thing. You, as the GM, need to figure out how you would escape from this prison that you've built. And you must be able to do so. If you've built too perfect a system, it's no good. You have to build a flawed prison. It has to be a mistake somewhere that the PCs can take advantage of and that the NPCs, bad and good, know nothing about for whatever MacGuffin reason you have. It is something that the PCs spot, note, find, discover, or in other words, know about that no one else does. If they don't, so if you indicate that their cell has got a storm drain and they've noticed that the hinges on the storm drain have rusted through and could quite easily be broken out, if they don't notice it, you need to have an NPC, I beg your pardon, you need to have an NPC who, I've been derailed, you need an NPC who knows of this escape. Now that contradicts what I've just said, I understand that. If the players don't work it out in the first 10-15 minutes whilst they're being in the prison and they look as if they're not entirely sure how they would escape, or their escape plan is particularly thick because it involves storming the guards in their heavily fortified position, have an old NPC who takes kindly on the party, or an NPC who desperately needs something from the outside but they themselves can't escape because they're missing all their legs, or an NPC who's only legs and doesn't have any arms, or however you want to play it. Have an NPC who sidles up to them and says, "I hear you want to get out. I know a way. I can get you out, but I need a favor in return." That NPC will then give them the idea. You go down the storm drain, at the bottom there's a T-junction. One leads towards the latrines, the other leads towards the guards' quarters. You take the one towards the latrines. They don't have bars on the exit. Who would go through the latrines, he asks. Then from the latrines you climb your way up into the bathroom facility, which is not monitored by those droids. And then from the bathroom facility you go through to the medical bay and so on and so on and so on until eventually you end up on the outside. So the NPC can give them the clues, but doesn't have all of the devices and things necessary. So that's the next critical component. Is now that you've got all of your NPCs set up and you've got all of these wonderful relationships happening, which, by the way, you can use later on, once the prison break has happened and the characters have moved on, 20 sessions later, suddenly someone walks up to them in a bar and says, "I was there when you broke out. You lot know what you're doing. Well, I've got a little problem. I need to break in to a fortress. There's a fortune waiting for us. I'd like you to lead it." So you can use those NPCs much later on to bring back all sorts of memories and wonderful adventures open up before you because of now having this stable of NPCs. Moving forward, a prison break also requires some clever stuff. This is the use of a nail file to hack through bars, using potato that grows old and mouldy to disguise their beds as being full of body. Whatever the things are that you can come up with, if there's a wood shop or if maybe there's a quarry, if there's a this or a that, you need to come up with some pretty cool stuff that they're going to need. Well, before you can get out of the latrines, you need to simulate water flow. So you need to build bladders that you'll hang to the base of your legs to let water go so the latrine doors automatically open. However you want to come up with it. The more inventive, the more crazy, the better. And if the players have to assemble those components by going to workshop today and tomorrow they want to get onto kitchen duty and the day after they want to get onto book duty and the day after that they need to go for a walk around the quad and then one of them needs to beat up the big tough bad guy who's always in the quad smoking so that they can distract him long enough so someone else can break into his cell to get that picture. That's everything that you will need to do. The more you can do it, the more interesting your prison break becomes. And again, it's not just NPCs who will give the information to the players. You can come up with all sorts of things as well. Sorry, I'm suffering from a bit of a throat cold at the moment, hence the swallowing. Now, your device is ready, various devices. Your NPCs have helped as much as they can, and theoretically your PCs have a solution. Should the warden now have his spies running around who've figured all of this out? No, not yet. This is the critical part. The warden, the jailer, the master of the prison facility, all of those kind of things needs to be so arrogant, so comfortable, or so paranoid, but blindly paranoid, that they don't see what's happening and they don't see the PCs as ever being able to escape from the prison. The guards themselves need to be fairly poor quality guards as well. Now, we're not talking Skyrim guards where they get shot in the face with an arrow and they wander around for 2 seconds and then they go back to their position. We are talking about guards who are very slow to react. Guards who are not interested in performing their duties on a well-run basis, but guards who are slow. They hear a noise. They wait for their fellow guard to come with them before they go and investigate whilst loudly saying, "Oh, did you hear that loud noise? I heard that loud noise. I wonder what made that loud noise. It's probably a cat. Well, let's just wander over slowly. Hey, cat, are you making a loud noise?" It didn't respond, so it's probably not a cat. Well, why would a cat respond? They can't talk, can they? Oh, that's a fair point. It's probably a cat then. Get my meaning? You need to give the PCs every opportunity to escape, avoid, not be seen, stealth along, just get out of the way. Security cameras that slowly scan across the room should also slowly scan back so that PCs can run across and hide and avoid with a few well-timed checks and things. Now, this is not to say that if the PCs are totally useless and absolutely screw up or do something stupid, that you can't then just have the guards swarm around them and arrest them. It's entirely up to you. But once arrested, the guards, of course, will know of their escape plan, and that sets in motion a whole new attempted escape from the prison. However, that's not exactly what you want to have happen. You want the players to get out, because ultimately, unless your entire game is set inside a prison, and we know from a few fantastic TV series that that's entirely possible, but unless it is, I would advise making sure your guards are taking a really long time to respond to things. Also, bear in mind that we did speak about guards being friendly towards the PCs and the NPCs being the prisoners being friendly towards the PCs who might start a riot. So you have a few get out of jail free cards, if you'll excuse the expression. I really am sorry. If you excuse the expression, you do have some options where the PCs say, "Oh fuck it, I'm charging the guards." You go, "Oh, that's so stupid." Well, just before you launch your attack, coming out of the blue from nowhere is the prison guard that you have made friends with. He's seen you first, and he's pulled his buddies away to go for a quick drink, or he's playing cards with them, giving you an opportunity to sneak past. You've got to be on your toes. Now, of course, the other thing is the unforeseen problems. You need to make sure that the players, although they try and cover all their bases, and preferably they do try and cover all their bases, but even if they don't, you need to make sure that there's one or two things that they didn't foresee. All you've got to do is scamper across the roof, get onto the west tower roof, and there's a drain pipe that you can follow all the way down to the ground. Well, what they didn't anticipate was that the distance between the main roof and the west tower is a jump of 20 feet. Do they jump it? Do they try and find a way around it? Those kind of unforeseen little glitches which you use sparingly and you only use if you need them. If the whole thing's already been tense and nervous and people are desperately trying to get out and they keep stumbling and just making it, don't put any unforeseen things in their way. Let them get through. On the other hand, if it's been a breeze so far and their rolls have all allowed them to just waltz around as if nothing's going on, throw in some unforeseen circumstances. The door jams with only 3 inches of gap, or there is some other problem and they have to leave behind the flotation device because they can't make it through, or the flotation device squeaks, or there's a door that's locked that shouldn't be locked. All those kind of things you can throw in, but remember, you need to throw them in with the idea of how they would overcome them. So you have to go to plan 1 or 2 things beforehand in order to make your prison break work very, very well. So it's NPCs, it's the MacGuffin device that they're going to require to escape from the prison, as well as then making sure that the guards don't respond on time. They're not very good at their aim. There's a reason why that Star Wars meme exists around stormtroopers. And make sure that the players are constantly on the edge of their seats as they sneak around each and every corner. Now, it goes without saying that you might want to pre-generate a map or 2 beforehand, and that's all very good and well, and it's a very good idea to do. It also depends on how long you want the prison break to work for. So if you manage to generate a complete map of the prison and you get it to the players, they will scrutinize it, most likely, hopefully, and if you've got the right players at your table. Know your players and you'll know whether you need to draw a map or not. They'll look at that map and they'll try and work out this way and that way to get out. Make sure that they can actually get out, of course, and if they find a way that they think will work, but you know for certain that they ignored one of the lines as being a solid wall, when they get there, that wall is under construction perhaps and is half built or is a quarter built. Or perhaps the wall itself is still there, but someone has thoughtfully decided to put a door into it. However you want to do that. So make sure that your players don't get into too much trouble. Of course, like I said, there should be consequences to poor player choices and to poor PC rolls. If those characters are just not capable of escaping from the prison and you've given them everything that you could, plus slow responding guards, and they still manage to stuff it up, have no fear about simply arresting them again, punishing them, beating them, torturing them, and then leaving them back in their cell, allowing them to go for round 2 and escape 2. In which case, then I would suggest, unless the players seem excited about option 2 and trying to escape, unless they feel like they want to do it again, then have someone rescue them. And again, preferably someone from their past who knows them and who has the resources to do so. Well, this has been a long exploration of the setting or the way in which you should run a prison break. And of course, it applies across all of the genres that we love to play in. If it has been useful, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can join us on Patreon, where I will be giving out maps every week, or every month, I should say. I'll be drawing them every week to make sure they're ready for every month. Maps and things that you can use in your own campaign to generate your own prison breaks if you so desire. Until next time, I wish you and yours the happiest of gaming. And for those of you who stayed with me, please go and check out our other channel, Bacon Battalion RPG, because this week saw the launch of our brand new role-playing series, which is a series that I host, called The Adventures of the Windswift. And the players and I deconstruct the episodes after each episode is played. We deconstruct exactly why their choices were made the way they did, what the players were thinking and why their PCs did what they did, and why I as a GM made certain calls and decisions based on their actions. Now, that's entirely up to you to go and have a look at that, but I think it's a lot of fun, and we put in as much effort as we possibly can. Even if you don't want to watch it, go and have a look, and then leave us your comments, thoughts, and feedback. So, until then, thanks for watching.